Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of The Last Duel. This movie is directed by Ridley Scott, who previously directed Alien Covenant and Gladiator. This movie stars Matt Damon, Adam Driver, with Jamie Comer and Ben Affleck. Now, the plot of this movie takes place in France in the year 1387, I believe. The movie jumps around, so it's a little hard to remember the exact dates. But it takes place in the medieval times with knights and ladies, lords, kings. And Matt Damon plays Jean de Garouge, and Adam Driver plays Jacques Legree. They're best friends. And Matt Damon meets and marries a woman named Marguerite, played by Jamie Comer. And one day, while Matt Damon's character is away, Adam Driver shows up and allegedly assaults Marguerite, thus leading to a big old trial and finally a duel to the death between the two men. Now, this movie is told in a unique way. It's told from three perspectives, 3 point of views, three beliefs. First one is Matt Damon's character and how he perceives events, even years leading up to the event, and then Adam Driver's, and then Marguerite's. Now, this movie was very engaging because unlike a lot of movies that have certain point of view events happen, like Snake Eyes or Vantage Point, this one was definitely intense because of the subject matter. And also, the way it was told was each point of view had different recollections, different perspective, different views on how certain characters, certain events, and certain conversations unfolded. Now, this being a Ridley Scott film, Ridley Scott is not afraid to shy away from anything, whether it's brutal sword fights or just being graphic, whether it's someone having a conversation or kind of implying certain things are happening. One of my examples is The Counselor. I don't like that movie at all. However, it's pretty graphic, both in the violence, but also it's very gratuitous. There's a conversation that Javier Bardem's character has with Michael Fassbender about Cameron Diaz. If you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. So Ridley Scott almost makes it his goal to make his audiences uncomfortable. Now, I get it. He's trying to, hit the point home that certain things may or may not have happened in this story of The Last Duel, but because it's told from multiple perspectives, we get to see a couple scenes repeated. We get to see a scene of a conversation or of a character's perspective of something that may or may not have happened. And because of that, we do get, I'll just say, the assault scene shown multiple times. And again, that's maybe Ridley Scott just trying to hit the point home that things like this may happen, things like this are not for the weak of heart, and things are hard to watch. And so that's what we get in this movie. Now, I will say the acting in this film is great from everybody involved. Matt Damon, he's been hit or miss for me lately, but here I was sold again. I'm like, all right, I forgot how good of an actor Matt Damon could be. Adam Driver, I've always heard he was a good actor, but I just maybe didn't see the right things to kind of, get me on board with the Adam Driver train. But after Marriage Story and this film, yes, Adam Driver, he's an actor to watch for this generation. He's a lot more than just Kylo Ren. Now, Jamie Comer, the only other thing I'd seen her in was Free Guy. Yes, it's hard to believe it's the same actress. But here, she's great. She's probably the best acting job of this movie. Not because of what she had to film and what she had to endure as a character, but just her scenes of her being this loving wife, being this woman who's trying to take charge of the household while her husband's away, having to deal with the husband's wicked mother. Really good job. The supporting cast is also really good. Ben Affleck as this other king, King Pierre, who likes to indulge in a lot of lavish parties, also really good. Martin Sakis is a supporting character in this movie. I wish he was given more, but he's in this really just to be a staple in the storytelling, to remind you that, okay, this is this event being told again, so that's why he's there. This movie also has two actors from Game of Thrones. One of them is Bruce Bolton. The king, I forget his name, Alex something. He's played by the kid that played a young Alan Turing in the Imitation Game. His role was limited, but also he was fine. there's also a guy, I forget his name. His last name is Ivanek. He's in everything. I'll put his name here below. He's got white hair. He plays like this spokesperson for the church during the trial. Really good. The acting is great. The cinematography, awesome. Ridley Scott has never made a bad looking movie. And I've got to say, whether it's the inside of a castle, the outside weather, the brutal fight and duel at the end of this movie, really good. There's two types of movies Ridley Scott seems to do, and that's historical biopics and swordplay movies. And before I saw this movie, I was a little hesitant that they were going to make Gladiator 2, if they still are. But now I'm like, you know what? Do it. Make it, because this duel was so intense and so riveting. And one thing that I appreciated as far as the way the movie was made, but, it just reinforced a harsh realization, is that if you were alive back in these times, your life was terrible. Unless you knew someone of nobility or wealth or power, your life was no fun. And this goes to show that even though, there was communication and there is a judicial system back then, just the smallest complaint, the smallest gripe, the smallest crime, the smallest thing could lead to the worst punishment. And they even go into detail and they say that, even though Matt Damon's character might get killed in this duel for his honor, that this even worse punishment may befit Marguerite if she's found guilty. And it makes you be glad that you live in the time that you live in, but it does show you that back then they really didn't have a whole lot to live for. They paid taxes, they lived with their honor, and they took care of their homelands, their children, their farms, and whatnot. So being alive in that time wasn't the greatest thing, and this movie does a really good job of depicting that aspect. So because the acting in this was really good, the time jumps were a little confusing. They didn't use too many names because it was in France, and I could see how that can be confusing as well. This movie was well made. The subject matter is a little tough, but I'm okay with that because you don't see too many movies like this. And, once I was watching this documentary and they proved a good point. They said that, happy endings in movies they're great and they're enjoyable, but they're forgettable. It's the tragic endings, it's the sad endings, it's an ending like this that makes you sit up in your chair, that makes you just think about how things are done in life back then and now, that just make you ponder things. And this movie does leave you just with a feeling, because nobody in this movie, except for Marguerite, nobody in this movie is really worth anything. They all suck. They all suck, but that's just how life was at that time. So because this is based on a true story, because it's well directed, because this was a pleasant surprise, I'm going to give The Last Duel an A-. This is definitely worth checking out, guys. Till next time, see ya.